Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Nana Nilakaravasam, the session co-host. I have renamed my name as SCH_Nayana, and we are in the parallel online session 3.2. The session chair has already renamed him as SC_Dilipa Vitarana, and the presenter should rename them, giving their paper identification first, the number, the paper ID, and the underscore and the name, so that it will be easy for us to identify them. And all the others, that is the co-authors and the other participants, should rename them as participants underscore with their name. If you do that, it will be very convenient for us to recognize you in the participant list. The chairperson of this parallel online session is the director of the Center for Environmental Studies and Sustainable Development, Dr. Dilipa Vitarana. Dear Dr. Vitarana, now I am handing over the session to you. There are, I want to tell you that the first presentation in the list, we have not yet received the presentation, and we couldn't find them in the presentation list as well. So it seems they have not logged in yet. That is paper identification 120. They have not logged in even. So I think we will have to wait 15 minutes to run the second one. So you can start the session, and during the break, so that time we will play 2 advertisements to keep the time.
So Nayana, shall we do it like this then? So we will start the session at 1, and I will give you the kind of basic announcements. Then after that we will take a break, and we will start with the first paper at 1:15.
At 1:15, yes. So meantime, we will play the advertisements that we have. Okay. Right. Thank you very much.
So then,
Dilipa.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the parallel online session 3.2. The theme of this session is best practices in ODL for education for sustainable development. In fact, we had 6 presentations in the agenda, but as you know now, we have only 5 presenters present at this session. So they will be presenting abstract number 173, 194, 156, 162, and 167. And each presenter will be given 15 minutes. And so the first 10 minutes will be allocated for the pre-recorded presentation. As you know, you all have sent your pre-recorded presentations. So we will play that at the beginning. And then the next 5 minutes out of the 15 minutes will be allocated for question and answer session. So so I would like to request the whole audience, the presenters and the participants, to keep your mics and videos off, and only the presenter can switch on the audio and the video during the Q&A session, the relevant presenter. And you can, when it comes to the Q&A session, you can send your questions either to the chat box, or you can raise your hand using the hand raising facility available in Zoom. So, so I think we will stop there, and we will start because I mean, since this is online and it's pre-scheduled, so we will have to wait till since the first presenter is not available, we will wait till 1:15 and then we will start with the presentation, the abstract 173. Thank you.
Transport facilities, including modern highways and superior communication. The land of 1,000 unique experiences. Glitzy supermalls for shopping. Great destinations for adventure. Places rich in history and culture. Cuisine with the flavors of paradise. a truly unique destination for any event with endless possibilities for business and leisure.
On all four directions are works in stone and roundels of gold, broad the quadrangles and mansions of mighty mould, tall the gabled houses and balconies. Where else? Not on earth, but in heavens are those of such elegance and girth. Sri Lanka, a nation steeped in history. A nation with incredible cultural diversity. A nation of heavenly heights and purity. A nation of legendary beaches. A nation whose capital, Colombo, resonates with tradition and modernity. Occupying a pride of place in this unique nation and the city is the Open University of Sri Lanka, OUSL, Sri Lanka's premier ODL institution. And we are ready to welcome for AAOU is opening minds for a sustainable future, reorienting ODL to surmount challenges. With this theme, we intend to create intellectual spaces and opportunities for reflecting on the UNESCO concern of education as a means of sustainable development.
As a founding member of the AAOU, the Open University of Sri Lanka celebrates its 40th anniversary in 2020. We offer AAOU our inimitable and peerless experiences to open minds and cultivate the notions of sustainable education.
OUSL and AAOU. Let us expand the horizons of ODL.
Okay, Dr. Dilip Vitarane, now you can start the session.
Okay, welcome again to the parallel online session 3.2 on best practices in ODL for education for sustainable development. So let's start with abstract number 1773, the validity of the quality assessment tools used at the Open University of Sri Lanka. And this paper is by Chulani J. Herath, HUC Nuansala, GRL Ratnayaka, Gayeshi Madhushani, and HPK Amarasingh. So you can start the presentation.
Hello everybody. Let me introduce myself and the research team. My name is Chulani Herath from the Department of Psychology and Counseling, Faculty of Health Sciences, the Open University of Sri Lanka. This research team consists with the representatives from the Department of Nursing, Medical Laboratory Sciences, Pharmacy, Basic Sciences, and the research assistants from the QA cell, Faculty of Health Sciences. As you can see the screen, the topic of our research study is validity of quality assessment tools used in the Open University of Sri Lanka. This is a preliminary small scale of research study conducted by the Quality Assurance Cell focusing on the student sample in the Faculty of Health Sciences, Open University. Several sources of evidences introduce different assessment tools used for different purposes to evaluate the many aspects of teaching learning process, educational programs, projects, so on. Like primary and secondary education, in the higher education setting also, the student-teacher interactions impact on to improve students' performance and the students' evaluation impact on enhance the quality of teaching learning process. When we look at the students' evaluation according to the literature, student evaluation of faculty teaching have 4 recognized functions. They provide diagnostic feedback for faculty, an evaluative tool for personal decisions, information for students, and a subject for academic research. Teaching quality is an important criterion to assess in higher education. Students and their parents demand high quality teaching, and teachers and department heads need good measures of teaching quality. It is important begs of the questions whether the current teaching assessment provide reliable data on teaching effectiveness. When we focus on teaching quality can be measured in different ways and by tapping different sources. The most common way to measure teaching quality in higher education is through student evaluations of teachers. In most cases, student evaluation of teaching quality are obtained via evaluation questionnaires. In higher education, student ratings are often used to evaluate and improve the quality of courses and lecturers' instructional skills. The objective of this study is to examine the rating of students on the quality of teaching and to assess the validity of quality assessment tools used in the Open University of Sri Lanka. When we look at the quality assessment tools used in the Open University, the Open University have already developed quality assessment tools to evaluate the students' feedback on course materials, laboratory sessions, and day schools. For this paper, we used the findings of the students' feedback on day schools. Based on the evaluation results for the questionnaire used to get the feedback for day schools, we are presenting the findings here.
We can't hear.
proportion of the students was only 16% out of the total population of the low attendance of students in the last days of the day schools. Usually we are providing day school evaluation for feedback forms to the students at the last date of the day schools in each courses. The items in the questionnaire were measured on 5-point Likert scales, where 1 indicated strong disagreement and 5 indicated strongly agreement to this statement. The Google Forms were also used to collect the data as well as the printed feedback forms. All collected data were recorded in Microsoft Excel. The data was analyzed using statistical software SPSS version 21. When we look at the analysis of data, the internal consistency reliability was assessed using Cronbach's alpha coefficient and item to total correlation. Cronbach's alpha of more than 0.7 indicates that student feedback on day school is reliable. Construct validity was evaluated using exploratory factor analysis EFA, and it was used to check if all items can be reduced into a smaller dimension. Factor loading of 0.4 was used as the cutoff point in order to check the redundant items. Here you can see the results of this study. The table 1 shows construct validity. To evaluate the construct validity, KMO and Bartlett test was run. The KMO statistics was 0.913 and the results of Bartlett's test was p-value below 0.001, which leads to the high sampling accuracy. The principal component analysis of the resulting 16 items questionnaire extracted into 2 factors, which explain 53.2% of the variance in the data. This table contains component leadings, which are the correlations between variable and components. This makes the output easier to read by removing the clutter of low correlations that are probably not meaningful anyway according to the results. Therefore, some of the items can be removed from the questionnaire as it is in the below of the cutoff point 0.4. Here you can see the highlighted items which identified based on the results of the component analysis. Use blackboard or whiteboard was effective. The lecturer was well prepared for the class. The lecturer came for the day schools on time. I am motivated to follow the course after attending the day school. Overall, I am happy that I attended the day school because I was able to gain knowledge and clear my doubts. These are the items that was identified based on the test results. This table, you can see the component analysis results after removing the items which identified in the component analysis presented in the table 2. After removing the items which have shown the low correlation with both of the factors of EFA was done to the remaining variables. We have removed 5 items in the questionnaire based on the results of the component analysis as it is below the cutoff level. Those 11 items can be extracted again into 2 components as shown in the table 3. Item 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, 10 and 11 show high correlation with the first component, while the others show high correlation with the second factors. This table you can see the results of the reliability analysis. The Cronbach alpha for the questionnaire before removing the above items was 0.8, which shows a high consistency of the measures. First, alpha coefficient was used to test the internal consistency. A Cronbach alpha for more than 0.7 indicates that student feedback on day school is reliable. By looking at the item correlation and Cronbach alpha, if item deleted, it can be interpreted that the alpha value is getting somewhat higher when those variables are removed as mentioned in the exploratory factor analysis. Here you can see the highlighted items which we identified based on the results of the factor analysis. According to the results of the EFA, we can conclude that it can be removed the following items from the day school feedback form. The lecturer was well prepared for the class. The lecturer came for the day school on time. Use of feed by blackboard or whiteboard was effective. I am motivated to follow the course after attending the day school. Overall, I am happy that I attended the day school because I was able to gain knowledge and clear my doubts. The conclusion of this study showed that the student feedback form on day school is a valid instrument in evaluating teaching effectiveness. The items of the questionnaire were validated and extracted into two factors. The model could be argued that the student feedback form on day school has construct validity but lacks content validity as some of the items 6, 10, 11, 15 and 16 do not seem to measure teaching effectiveness, particularly on construct validity to be conducted so as to develop a more comprehensive instrument as a valid tool to measure teaching effectiveness in the institution. When we concern about the limitation of the study, in this study, limited number of students provided their opinion about their teachers as it is day school attendance are not compulsory. The data were collected from the students who participated for the day schools. Recommendations for future research. For future research, it is suggested to conduct this study in the other faculties which might be helpful to verify the results of this pilot study. In addition, some items of the student perception questionnaire in this study did not provide much information and might be excluded in future research. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now it is the time for questions. So the floor is open. So maybe I can ask a question, Chulani.
Yes.
Now, I mean, the purpose of this studies is to kind of check, you know, the quality of day schools we are conducting. So, in a way, I found that it's more a kind of a statistical exercise than an activity to actually assess the quality of day schools we are kind of conducting. Now, what is your opinion on that? Now, it's more kind of a statistical exercise. I kind of felt.
Actually, when we look at this day school evaluation form, actually it's already developed by the university some time back. So we use that evaluation form to see whether it has any, the valid, whether it is a valid tool for collect the data. So based on the health science faculty sample, so it is not enough actually for the and to the whole university, as this majority of the students in other faculty we have to consider. And there are 16 items in this questionnaire. So for this purpose, so I think we have to identify the perception of the students and their opinion. So I think we need to conduct a qualitative assessment to analyze such data.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of impression I got, like whether to go for qualitative assessment than this kind of, quantitative statistical exercises. I mean, it's really interesting. So maybe as you suggested, we can think of conducting, this for other faculties as well, right?
Yes, as in this research actually conducted as it is initiated by the trade quality assurance that committee. So our faculty choose this area to study. So then we proposed to the Quality Center for Quality Assurance to conduct this study by using all three evaluation form in each faculty. So then based on that findings, we can do some revision in the day schools and the other analysis forms later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? The audience? So if there are no questions, maybe we can move on to the next presentation. Thank you very much, Chulani and the team. And so we will move on to the next presentation. It is abstract number 194, and the title is Enhancing Oral Interaction Skills of French Language Students Through Informal Learning and Analysis of Potentially Acquisitional Sequences of Learner Interaction. Harini Amelka Kalansuriya. Over to you, Harini.
Enhancing oral interaction skills of French language students through informal learning, an analysis of potentially acquisitional sequences of learner interaction. Interacting is for many the most important, the most effective, and the most natural approach to learning a foreign language. In general terms, the ultimate goal in language learning is to be able to communicate and to interact in a particular language. However, it is also one of the most challenging tasks faced by students and teachers alike. When proposing solutions, it is common practice to suggest modification of pedagogical material, subject content, teaching practices, or teaching methodologies. However, it is important to think outside the box and to come up with more innovative, creative, and student-centered strategies. The present study examines one such initiative taken by the University of Lille, France, to develop oral interaction skills of French language students outside the walls of the traditional classroom. The interest for this research arose from my personal experience as a student and later as a teacher of French as a foreign language. As a student in Sri Lanka, I had difficulties, especially in speaking activities. It was during my study period in France when I had the opportunity to compare my language competency level with that of other international students that I realized the need to improve my oral interactive competency. Moreover, as a teacher in Sri Lanka, I noticed the large gap between the written and oral competency levels of Sri Lankan students. Therefore, I was always on the lookout for some innovative, novel strategies. The Café Langue, of the Language Cafe in English, of University of Lille was an ideal solution in this regard. The Café Langue is an informal learning program set up with the main aim of improving oral interaction among university students. It is located outside the walls of the traditional classroom in a cafe on the university premises, which confers an informal character to it. This system is organized into several tables allocated to different foreign languages such as German, Spanish, English, Chinese, Japanese, Russian, and French as a foreign language. Learners engage in interactions in foreign languages around these tables. Unlike other tables where conversations are led by the learners themselves, the FFL table is led by a native speaker recruited on a student-regent contract by the Department of Teaching French. The group of participants consists of international students with varied cultural and linguistic origins. In addition, they have various language levels. Our aim in this study was to examine how Café Langue promotes oral interaction among its participants. Accordingly, we chose to analyze oral interactions of participants in order to determine the presence and the behavior of potentially acquisitional sequences in these interactions. Potentially acquisitional sequences, or PAS, is a concept suggested by Di Pietro, Matti, and P. in 1988. It refers to any exolingual conversational sequence organized around a formulation problem encountered by the novice speaker and perceived as such either by himself or by his native interlocutor. This episode is followed by the presentation of input treated as such by the novice. The terminology used suggests that such sequences constitute conversational contexts that are particularly favorable for the acquisition of foreign languages. According to this definition, there are three main movements of a PAS. Firstly, a self-structuring movement which the novice constructs using the linguistic resources at his disposal. Secondly, a heterostructuring response from the expert speaker who helps and corrects the speech of the novice. Thirdly, an uptake of the expert's response by the novice in the form of repetition or ratification, which constitutes the eventual acquisition. These three important movements help understand the PAS's dual functionality. On the one hand, a potentially acquisitional sequence forms a conversational context favorable for acquisition of the foreign language by the learner. On the other hand, it ensures the smooth running of the interaction where the novice speaker manages to continue his exchange by overcoming obstacles. In order to understand how Café Long promotes oral interaction, it was necessary to identify the learner profiles through a questionnaire. Accordingly, the study focused on 12 FFL learners of University of Lille with different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. Secondly, participant observations were carried out in Café Long sessions where the oral interactions of participants were recorded. Since the audio recordings do not collect important nonverbal data such as gestures, mimes, facial expressions, a logbook was maintained to record this information. Accordingly, two types of data were collected: oral interactions in the form of sound recordings and logbook notes. A detailed analysis of the oral interactions was carried out where we closely studied certain potentially acquisitional sequences to identify the issues at play. This analysis allowed to infer the following results. In most occurrences, potentially acquisitional sequences are initiated by the learner. Most often, the sequence is initiated following a request for linguistic tools or a request for hypothesis confirmation by the learner. We thus observe a request for an explicit didactic contract on the part of the learner who incites the expert to produce a heterostructuring statement. In these contracts, the learner seems to have fully recognized his role as a learner. This request for an explicit contract favors acquisition in the sense that the learner is open to input. Except in cases of direct solicitation by the learner and except in cases of speech block of the learner due to limited linguistic resources, the expert only very rarely intervenes to propose a heterostructuring statement or to correct the learner's comments. In the few cases where the expert intervenes without an explicit request, he ensures that the response is offered in the form of a proposition. In doing so, the expert encourages the learner to take risks, to experiment with different strategies, and to overcome obstacles on his own. Moreover, the limited intervention of the expert has a positive effect on the learner's production because the learner does not feel interrupted or disturbed in the middle of production. In addition, this type of intervention causes the least harm to learner's personality. Indeed, the main goal of the expert, the facilitator, or the native participant in the present context is not to recreate the atmosphere of the conventional language classroom, but to create a relaxed atmosphere favorable for interaction where the learner expresses himself in complete freedom. Furthermore, the expert's focus is more on communication than on code acquisition. Therefore, Café Long creates a favorable atmosphere for oral interaction. As Wasser points out, the development of language competence goes beyond the strict acquisition of code. Developing language skills also presupposes developing the ability to conduct a satisfactory interaction. This means that it is certainly a question of negotiating when a problem arises, and it is then that the negotiation sequences are potentially acquisitional. Apart from those, additional observations were made regarding Café Long program. The welcoming attitude of the moderator, who seems to be more interested in developing oral interaction in learners than in making them acquire linguistic tools, and who tries to make the learners autonomous in relation to risk-taking, contributes to the development of oral interactions. In addition, even if the participants come from different linguistic backgrounds, the presence of a shared linking language seems to greatly facilitate interactions. On the one hand, the multilingual richness of the participants allows them to overcome production problems more easily. On the other hand, the multicultural richness makes it possible to tackle more diverse topics of discussion, which allow the development of cultural mediation activity. The friendly, relaxed atmosphere of the informal situation of Café Long, where the efforts of the learners are valued, seems to favor the initiatives of learners. Numerous research is carried out on oral interactions in formal or non-formal learning situations, but few studies examine their place in an informal situation. Therefore, we believe that this research study constitutes an interesting contribution to the field of foreign language didactics. Further, the corpus collected enriches the existing corpus database. Nevertheless, we cannot deny the fact that the results of the study would have had more weight if they were supported by a quantitative dimension. A possible research avenue is to conduct a comparative study between potentially acquisitional sequences of formal learning, or formal and informal learning contexts, and or of heteroglot and homoglot learning environments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harini. Very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
And now the floor is open for questions. During the initial presentation, I think missed one question in the chat box, but I think I managed to ask the same question by myself. So please do send your questions to chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask the question. Maybe as a start, I can ask something from you.
Yes.
Now, how far relevant is this to teach, for example, let's say French language in Sri Lanka, maybe at the OUSL?
Now, like when we take the Sri Lankan context, I always see a very traditional atmosphere where like we try to replicate the traditional language classroom, be it university, school environment, tuition, private tuition classes, like Alliance Française. So what I suggest is to like distance ourselves from the traditional classroom, to organize such language cafes where we could ask the student to participate in them and improve their oral interactions in complete freedom. So I could suggest maybe maybe even in OUSL, if it's possible to organize language cafes like this. It's not going to be French only, but English, even Sinhala, Tamil. There could be different tables like this. People come, they talk, and they go. There's no one to judge them. There's no one to, correct themselves, correct them like as a teacher does. But they can always get the help of each other and develop these interactive skills as a group in a very informal manner. So that I think like when something is taught, like we tend to, when something is not taught, actually, when something is placed in a very informal context, we tend to grasp the knowledge better, and we tend to develop the skill better than in a traditional language classroom. So that would be practical.
There is a question in the chat box. Now that there is a pandemic, how can this language cafe be applied in an online setting?
Yes, actually we have virtual cafe long systems. The only problem is in Sri Lanka, we have a problem with the connection. If the connection is stable, I mean, we have these online sessions where students can participate, how should I say, online. We can have Zoom meetings, or if it's, and we can have like play games, and even talk. People can switch on the mic, the camera, and they can talk. Like, I cannot say that it's going to be 100%. I mean, we cannot have the same result as a physical session, but still it's possible. We can organize. Someone could organize Zoom sessions, or even we could have, we could use Teams, or even using social media like WhatsApp. We can organize sessions like that where people, students express themselves. So I'm not like, if the signal strength is good and if students are equipped with all the necessary equipment, I think it will be practical on online as well.
maybe another question now, how can, I mean, now since the native speaker, I mean, you said, you know, in the cafe, I mean, they play the role of a teacher. Now when it comes to teaching French here,
Yes.
so who is going to play that role?
Maybe the teacher, but we can do without the teacher as well. Like that's what I told. Like when we compose these groups, it's better to have students with different language levels, competency levels, so that even though the teacher figure is not there, students can help each other. I mean, like Vygotsky says, we have when there's a student with a higher competency level, he can always help the others. And so even though the teacher, the figure of the teacher, the role is not actually compulsory. I mean, I think in my opinion, it's better if the teacher is not there.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, yeah, I think maybe we can move on to the next presentation. And so the next presentation is the abstract number 156. And the title is A Study on the Effectiveness of Learning Sinhala as a Second Language via the Online Mode. Diniti Ranasinghe. So Diniti, over to you.
Hello everyone. I'm Diniti Ranasinghe.
Excuse me, Dr. Dilip. Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is not the one I have sent. So this is the previous one. I have sent you the new one, edited one.
So now this is played by our technical team.
I have informed them too.
Yeah, but now if there are no big changes, can we go with this? Because I think we don't have the time to find another one.
Shall I send my screen? Because I have the edited one. So if you don't mind, I can share my screen.
What does the technical team say?
Okay, if the connectivity is okay, we don't mind. She can share her screen.
Okay, shall we try it now?
Make her host name.
Yes, this. Can you see it now, sir?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello. You have not shared with sounds. You have to share with sounds as well. In the sharing screen at the bottom, there's something you have to share with sounds.
Sound is. Can't you hear it now, sir?
No, we can't.
No, we can't. We don't hear.
Yeah.
In the sharing screen at the bottom,
Yeah.
you have a place to select that. Share with sounds.
Is it in the
In the Zoom sharing screen?
Yeah.
At the bottom.
First, you should have to stop sharing.
Okay.
And you should have to start share again. There's a checkbox under the bottom left corner.
I have shared this. I have stopped sharing now.
Yeah.
And
you should have to start now again.
Start now again. Okay. Yeah. So then. Share sound.
Yeah, the sharing screen.
Let's see whether this is okay now.
Hello everyone.
Is it okay now, sir?
I'm
Yeah,
Dinithi
yeah.
Utpalasinghe,
Right.
attached to the
Yeah,
Center
yeah.
for Educational Technology and Media at the Open University of Sri Lanka. My research topic is a study of the effectiveness of learning Sinhala as a second language online. Here is the outline of my presentation. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a second language is a language that a person can speak that's not the first language they learned naturally as a child. Accordingly, a second language learning is an intentional process and it presupposes teaching. Second language learning traditionally takes place in a face-to-face context, and in literature, there are contradicting statements related to second language learning online. But due to the current pandemic situation, there is a need to transition the language learning methodologies related to second language to distance learning mode. Therefore, this research aimed at observing the effectiveness of learning Sinhala as a second language online. This study was conducted with special reference to the first year Tamil medium undergraduates who had registered for the second language Sinhala course unit in the Faculty of Management and Finance, the University of Colombo, in the year 2020. At the end of the course, the students were expected to communicate in basic Sinhala. Accordingly, the lessons and the activities were planned to develop the four main language skills that are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The Zoom video conferencing tool was used to deliver this course unit because the students were familiar with its technology and the students could experience synchronous learning experience with this tool. The effectiveness was tested based on the marks obtained by the students at their mid and final examinations, the students' feedback on their language learning experience, and participant observations. My research problem is it possible to achieve the learning outcomes of the second language Sinhala course unit effectively online? The research questions are: what are the challenges faced by the students when learning Sinhala as a second language via Zoom video conferencing tool? The second one is: what are the strengths of using the Zoom video conferencing tool for learning Sinhala as a second language? Let's move on to the research methodology. The data was collected for this study examining the first year Tamil medium undergraduates who had registered for second language Sinhala course unit in the Faculty of Management and Finance, University of Colombo in 2020. 20 students, which means 10 males and 10 females, were selected randomly as the participants of the study. Questionnaires, in-depth interviews, and participant observations were used to collect data. The questionnaires were distributed via emails and the interviews were conducted via telephone calls. Each student had filled and submitted the questionnaires and they participated in the interviews too. The students' listening and spoken skills were tested at the mid-examination and reading and writing skills were tested at the final examination. Although the mid-examination was conducted online, according to a decision taken by the university, the final examination was conducted physically. When it comes to the challenges faced by the students when learning Sinhala as a second language online, the following issues were revealed. According to the data collected through the questionnaires and the interviews, 63% of the students had mentioned that they had to face internet access issues and technical issues during the class sessions. 38% of the students had mentioned that they logged into the Zoom sessions through their mobile phones, and so it was difficult to concentrate on the lessons as they could not see the things very clearly. 21% of the students had stated that it was difficult to identify how to write some Sinhala letters correctly. In a face-to-face context, the teacher can observe how the students write letters very often by checking their notes, but in an online context, it's challenging. Students face difficulties in using the whiteboard option in the Zoom too. When examining the answer scripts, we could identify 3 common spelling mistakes made by the students in Sinhala writing. They are using the instead of the. For an example, Upantinaya instead of writing Upandinaya, using a instead of a. For an example, esa instead of writing asa, and using a instead of a. Example, Udesana instead of writing Udasana. When it comes to the strengths of using the Zoom video conferencing tool for language learning Sinhala as a second language, the following facts were revealed. According to the data collected through the questionnaires and the interviews, the main strength of having lectures via Zoom was its timeliness. It helped to get the maximum use of time allocated for the lectures. It could be observed that the students were happy about the flexibility of scheduling lectures too. Repetition is very important in second language learning. Because of the recording option in the Zoom video conferencing tool, the lectures could be recorded and the students could watch and listen to them repeatedly. Audio-visual aids also play a vital role in the process of learning a second language. We could use a lot of audio-visual aids easily via Zoom. In a traditional face-to-face class, it's not that easy. When it comes to a second language teaching learning process, it's a challenge to keep the students motivated. But due to the Zoom video conferencing tool, we could introduce new games and interactive activities. 60% of the students had mentioned that they enjoyed learning with the new technology rather than taking part in traditional face-to-face classes. Here are the marks obtained by the students at their final examination. Now you can see them as a graph. So let's come to the conclusions and suggestions. According to the facts discussed above, the participants have faced certain challenges when learning Sinhala as a second language online, but they have found certain advantages of this platform too. There is a challenge to improve the students' writing skills via online platform and should find some options to overcome this issue. According to the quantitative and qualitative data collected through the questionnaires and in-depth interviews, participant observations and the marks obtained by the students, the majority had mentioned learning Sinhala as a second language online is effective. According to the final examination marks, everyone had scored above 50 out of 100 and the percentage of passing the examination was 100. So, it is evident that the learning outcomes of the second language Sinhala course unit could be achieved effectively via online environment as well. Here are the references that I have used. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Diniti. But I don't know whether we have time for questions. Maybe one question from the audience, a quick question. I think I was wondering whether you could have kind of compared this performance, online performance, with the kind of performance during normal times, right? With day schools and things. So you were not able to do that, right?
Yes, actually, previously I thought to, yeah. Previously, I thought to do it like that, but I think according to some educational technology theories, we can't compare such two environments because Zoom teaching and learning environment has different strengths and different weaknesses too. And when it comes to the face-to-face learning and teaching environment, there are some different identical strengths and weaknesses too. So therefore, according to that educational technology theories and some of the experts' ideas, so I felt like we can't compare such two environments because, so that is why I did a comparison here.
No, I mean, yeah, okay, I understand that, but now, for example, the performance, right, results, you presented the marks now?
Yeah.
So, isn't it possible?
So I think, when we do some further researches, I think we will be able to compare about this, their performance, as you said, they are testing about their final examination marks. That's true, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we can move on to the next presentation, abstract number 162. And it's a study towards promoting sustainable development in agriculture in the border disturbed regions of India through open and distance learning technologies. Indrani Lahiri, over to you.
Greetings to all at this AAOU conference. The topic of my presentation is Promoting Agriculture and Rural Development in Border Disturbed Regions of India, Connecting Farmers to Agri-Experts Using Open and Distance Learning Technologies. My presentation would include purpose of the study, introduction, objective of the research methodology, findings, and finally conclusion. The purpose of the study is to bring about rural revitalization at the disturbed borders of India through use of ODL to ultimately contribute to safety and security of the region. I will touch upon few points to introduce the topic. The population living along the international borders of a country are often marginalized, especially in regions which are rural and have active and live closed borders. These areas may not always be in a state of conflict, but they are characterized by threat perception, high security environment leading to restrictions in movement, and sometimes influences from across the border which make the population vulnerable. The Government of India views these people living in these areas as a strategic asset to the country and an important element to maintain border security and therefore efforts are made to improve social and economic infrastructure to ensure that these people along the international border continue to live there. India has 15,106.7 kilometers of land border with 7 countries. The Government of India implements the Border Area Development Project, that is BADP, at these international borders to meet the special development needs of people living in remote and inaccessible areas situated near these borders. BADP prioritizes agriculture and rural development since it has been seen that investments in these sectors play an important role in both preventing and recovering from conflict, and that interventions to sustain agricultural livelihood and improve food security could weaken some drivers of conflict. Internationally, rural revitalization and mitigating conflict have been identified as key factors for attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. In an earlier paper, I had identified factors which together could lead to rural revitalization of disturbed regions near the borders. Of the 4 factors, firstly, focus on agriculture and farm enterprise as the border areas are essentially rural. Secondly, using open and distance learning technologies for interventions in these difficult locations. Third, having security forces as partners for supporting any intervention since border areas would have high security and may lack internet access. And last, but not the least, understanding the context in which interventions can be made, since selecting an intervention and its implementation process would have different parameters as compared to a peace zone. Among the countries having borders with India, these factors together would be relevant to the India Pakistan border since it's a closed border which is disturbed and active. This paper therefore focuses on revitalization of agriculture and farm enterprise by connecting farmers in border regions to the agriculture knowledge base across India. India has a huge resource base with more than 112 ICR agricultural research institutes, more than 70 maybe agriculture universities in the government, as well as numerous organizations and universities in the private domain. Hence, the objective of the research is to understand feasibility of connecting farmers at border area of India to scientists and agri-experts within the country and establish indicators of baseline conditions for success. The research methodology used is as shown here. The findings of the survey shows that scientists having a range of specializations responded to the survey, most of them specifically mentioning their specialization, while 14% broadly mentioned their specialization as agriculture. The sector distribution of respondents, that is the sample population, showed that 82% were from the government sector, while 18% were from the private sector. For the questions about the number of interventions, that is the projects, research papers, discussion forums or webinars, etc., that the respondents have come across on these topics, it was seen that most respondents had not come across many interventions on this topic, with respondents from the government sector showing somewhat more awareness than the private sector. For the questions about the percentage of respondents who felt that populations along our borders were disadvantaged and needed support, it was seen that more than 80% of respondents of the government sector and more than 65% of private sector categorized the population at the border as disadvantaged. However, almost 25% of the private sector respondents categorized or rather thought that the border population was not disadvantaged. Further, the question about the extent to which distance learning technology or virtual mode is used by the respondents in the professional work, it was seen that more than 60% of private and more than 30% of government sector respondents showed frequent use of online or virtual mode, with the overall response showing optimum familiarity in working with this mode. For the questions regarding willingness of the respondents in providing advisory support to farmers at the borders of our country through virtual or distance mode, it is seen that more than 80% of private and 73% of government sector respondents showed willingness in providing advisory support to farmers at borders of our country. Hesitancy was shown by 14% of private and 19% of the government sector respondents. Further, for the question about the best way to reach out to this border population, it was seen that 60% of the respondents favored creation of a centralized hub through which linkages between farmers and agri experts could be made. Further, it was seen that specialization of the respondents more or less covered the agriculture sectors identified for promotion at the border areas by the Government of India. In conclusion, it can be said that scientists across spectrum of specializations responded, thus showing a positive interest among all in the topic. Low number of respondents from private sector could be because of uneven distribution of questionnaire or lower interest in the topic. The findings showed very low awareness of challenges faced by populations at the borders or disturbed or conflict zones with respect to conditions under which agriculture and agri-enterprise is undertaken. Further, very few could be aware of the connections between rural prosperity and security of the region. Given that prosperity at the borders of a country translates into greater border security and lesser migration, lesser illicit border trade, lesser insurgency, etc., more research and interest needs to be encouraged in this area among all agri experts in our country. A positive response, definitely, and empathy is seen among most of the respondents, indicating that they may actively participate in any such future farmers advisory and support initiative that we undertake. Further, overall familiarity of respondents in working with online or virtual mode gives yet another positive indicator that the proposed initiative could be successful. Overwhelming willingness of respondents is seen for providing advisory support for farmers at the borders, and which is a very positive indication because here they have overcome the hesitancy in connecting with populations in disturbed zones. Majority of the respondents were in favor of creation of a centralized hub through which linkages between farmers and agri experts could be made. Therefore, the findings of the study showed that baseline conditions for establishing successful connect between farmers at the borders and agri experts within the country are met, and that the respondents to the survey showed high level of enthusiasm in participating in such a proposed initiative. Also, the specialization of the willing respondents mostly covered the areas identified by BADP, and hence these respondents could be used in the creation of a core consultative group as a first step to take the initiative forward. Lastly, it is seen that the proposed initiative has extensive impact since it is seen to contribute to goals 1, 2, 4, and 10 of the sustainable development goals. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Indrani Lahiri. Interesting presentation. And so the floor is open for questions. We have just around 3 minutes. You can send your question to the chat box or you can raise the question.
Thank you. I'm here to answer the questions.
Yeah.
I'm audible? Am I audible?
Yeah. We can hear you.
Thank
Maybe
you.
I would like to raise a question now.
Yeah.
So what about the opinion of the people who are living in these disturbed border regions? I mean your focus. I mean your focus was on the people who are like experts, no, from government and private sectors living outside.
Yes. Very interesting question, and thank you for raising this question. You see, this study is a sort of journey which started with people from the borders approaching me through the defense forces to ask questions about cultivation practices because I had worked in the ministry and I had got posted near the borders later. So this actually is a process which has been happening for a while. And so I thought that they need help. And so, okay, so how do I bring people together to really support this group, this marginalized population, which is there at the borders? So when I went about it, firstly, I brought this concept. I spoke to defense experts that do they think that they would like to help the population at the borders? Yes, they were positive. They said, yes, we do a lot of support work and we would want them to be happy, because our citizens need to be happy to wherever they're located in high security zones. Then further, one found that agriculture was one of the mainstays of these populations because, and especially animal husbandry. So I am picking up one point at a time. First, I introduced this concept in 2019 at the PCF 9, which was held at Vancouver, Canada. Sorry, it was in Edinburgh. I'm sorry, I'm confusing this. So this was in Edinburgh in 2019. So that's where I first introduced this concept of these 4 factors coming together. If it comes together, then we can have rural revitalization at the borders. And I realized that there was a lot of research already going on this aspect. So I have touched upon agriculture and how I connect with the scientists. And so it was very heartening to see that they have overcome their hesitancy. And yes, they wanted to actually help, because when we talk about conflict, when we talk about disturbed regions, it's not always that, scientists are very forthcoming or would like to be involved. So this was a very happy thing that, yes, they want to contribute. Secondly, we are going to use ODL. And yes, the next stage of my research and my conversation with experts and with the international forum would be about what kind of technology, what kind of interventions, what are the mixes we have to use to reach the regions which are so marginalized and so insecurity zones. So that would be yet another, this is the way forward. And
thank you. Yeah, I think we have a kind of a time limitation.
I could go on.
So I think we have to understand your this study as a part of a ongoing study.
Yes.
So this is
it's part of
the advanced stage, right? Okay. Thank you very much for this the interesting presentation. So we will move on to the
Can I, sir? I'd like to put in one small my gratitude and thank you to AAOU and COL Fellowship for sponsoring my presence here. So my grateful thanks. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much. So now let's move on to the final abstract, number 167. Using Zoom technology for second language teaching in challenging situations. The OUXL experience during COVID-19, and it is by Nirosha Abhisekara, Subhani Vijayasinghe, and Anoma Satarasinghe. So over to you.
Good evening. My name is Nirosha Abhisekara, and my research partners for the current research are Subhashi Vijayasinghe and Anoma Satarasinghe. The topic of our research that I will be presenting at this conference is using Zoom technology for second language teaching in challenging situations, the OUSL experience during COVID-19. It is necessary to trace the introduction of distance education to Sri Lanka, which was in 1976, and subsequently through the establishment of the Open University of Sri Lanka in 1978. In line with the concepts explained by Satarasinghe in 2012 and Rahim in 2014, it is clear that in recent times, higher education has come to rely on technology-based learning. Therefore, despite Hermida's claims in 2020 that students have expressed stress related to online learning and difficulties when completing college work, it can be observed that the process of technology supported second language learning has been adopted worldwide, as has the OUSL, specifically through Zoom sessions. In this slide, the study was based on the objectives to discover perceptions of teachers on the Zoom experience in OUSL pertaining to second language teaching learning, to explore the observations of language experts on the Zoom technology used in teaching a second language, and to recommend improved teaching learning practices through Zoom technology by addressing the drawbacks which currently exist. Literature on the related fields indicated valuable insight into the absence of close research to investigate what language teachers and learners do in language learning, and to the provision of addressing problems of distance learners by providing autonomous and skillful mode of learning, among other facts. These findings can be related to the current study through the provision of providing additional support and flexibility through online resources and Zoom applications to second language learners. The research was conducted as a case study, and a convenient sampling method was adopted to collect data representing 4 second language programs in Sinhala, Tamil, and English conducted by the Department of Language Studies and the Department of English Language Teaching. The 2 samples selected constituted of 8 teachers and 9 Zoom session observations. 2 instruments were used: a questionnaire shared as a Google form with the sample of teachers, and observation checklists completed by the observers. The data were analyzed qualitatively to derive results. Under the discussion of results, the responses of the teachers and the findings from the observations are considered separately. The majority responded positively to the questions about their perception on the suitability of Zoom as a delivery method in second language teaching, while a minority had negative comments. Responding to the question on drawbacks of using Zoom, the majority had negative comments, such as unfamiliarity with technology resulting in poor interaction, inability to connect due to issues in data, low signals or sometimes power failure, and the non-availability of a conducive learning environment. The next question dealt with the rate of interaction between teachers and learners, to which some negative responses were given, such as eliciting answers can be more time-consuming than in class. When asked what should be done if Zoom is to be adopted as a permanent delivery method in future, a majority presented ideas such as promoting effective and efficient techniques like group discussions and online quizzes, and by providing training on the application of technology. A negative response was observed, indicating that Zoom is not for second language teaching and learning, particularly at certificate level. Commenting on their experiences, the respondents pointed out benefits of Zoom, such as the peer review facility, use of slides, which was impossible in face-to-face classrooms held in schools. The negative experiences touched on issues such as inconsistent power supply, unstable internet connections, tendency for passive learning, and the use of material which were designed for face-to-face teaching. A controversial comment was made by a respondent which claimed that she experienced low attendance at her Zoom sessions, which would not have been the case if classes were held face-to-face. The majority agreed that a practice of lesson delivery which combined Zoom with Learn OUSL and face-to-face was preferable, but a minority were of the opinion that the face-to-face mode alone should be continued. Findings from the observations were categorized under 5 sections following the themes used in the checklists. Section 1, dealing with the delivery of sessions, derived results indicating that the teachers need training on better delivery through online applications. As indicated by the results, monitoring of the learning process was poor, which could have been due to the massive numbers and the tendency of many students to remain passive. Also, it is clear that most of the time the teachers had not been able to cover the prescribed section due to the wastage of time resulting from technical issues and unfamiliarity of the teachers with the usage of the application. Results for section 3 indicate that teachers were able to adhere to a well-designed lesson plan only occasionally, and the visuals were not designed clearly and attractively. From these results, it is clear that the transition to the online method of teaching within a short period of time had not been smooth and effective. At a glance, it can be seen that almost half of the teachers have not been familiar with technology, and therefore use of technology had not been done efficiently and comfortably. The last section explains the observer's views. As indicated by the results, a combination of methods was recommended. This is extremely important in the context of second language teaching and learning, since the authenticity of language use is best experienced by students at face-to-face sessions. Several overall comments were made by the observers, which indicated steps to be taken to improve the Zoom delivery method, which will be elaborated under conclusions and recommendations. The study attempted to find the success of an online delivery method for second language teaching at an emergency situation. The success of a delivery method depends on the teaching material, types of learners, size of the class, and most importantly, the aims of teaching and the desired skills to be acquired. In the context of language teaching, these features are more relevant. For example, the total learner population in the program English for General Academic Purposes is over 4,000, and they are at mixed competency levels. Catering to these massive numbers through Zoom is challenging, and therefore proper training for both teachers and students in online delivery is a vital requirement if it is to be successful. A second language teacher should be an energetic, versatile personality, especially when the delivery takes place virtually. Care should be taken to use a clear voice and to keep the language simple and concise for the sake of better comprehension. Therefore, the teacher should be encouraged through training in online delivery tactics to use a student-friendly manner, which could help to retain their interest throughout. Further, the designing of a common deck of slides as teaching aids should be facilitated through monitoring and moderation in order to maintain uniformity. Moreover, to avoid teachers using inappropriate teaching environments, the facility of language labs could be provided by the Regional Educational Services Department of the Open University of Sri Lanka. In addition, not only should the students be given guidelines, preferably in their first language, familiarizing them with the technical procedure of joining a Zoom session, but they should also be guided in the etiquettes of engaging with technology for educational purposes to prevent embarrassing situations created by misconduct. To minimize the difficulties faced due to the inconsistent power supply and unstable internet connections, the students could be able to access free Wi-Fi zones provided by the university. As indicated by the results, the combination of delivery modes, that is face-to-face, Learn No USL, and Zoom, was much preferred by the respondents, which can be due to the fact that language learning cannot be solely based on one delivery method. Learning a language requires authentic engagement with a situation, which can be best achieved through face-to-face interactions. On the other hand, delivery of the lesson through Zoom would ensure uniformity across the regions. But at the same time, the theoretical input can be successfully imparted to the students through online platforms. Therefore, a successful language learning experience can be considered one where all delivery modes are combined. Further, the use of material designed for online delivery is important in order for the objective of the delivery method to be achieved successfully. It should be acknowledged that the Zoom technology emerged as a solution to an unanticipated emergency situation, and it served its purpose well. However, the data revealed that certain measures have to be implemented and several issues need to be addressed if this mode of delivery is advocated as a permanent fixture. Unlike in the face-to-face mode of delivery, Zoom presented the opportunity for research through readily available data, self-evaluation, Peer feedback, the use of experts in the field for delivery of lessons across the country, ease of monitoring, maintaining uniformity, and avoiding discrepancies, lessons being available for later viewing at multiple times, and learning teaching with cost effectiveness at the convenience of home. Having been exposed to its benefits, it is clear that this technology can be adopted in second language teaching through distance education, either on a regular basis or at emergency situations in the future, once the proposed adaptations are incorporated. These are the references used for the study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very useful and interesting study. So now is the time for questions. Yeah, you can ask the question, Lal.
Yeah, Dr. Nirosha, I'm referring to the word you use, authenticity. From your research, do you think Zoom has or will be able to deliver authenticity, the concept of authenticity and learning a second language through its interaction? What is your opinion or your research team's opinion on that?
Yes, Lal. To some extent, yes. Through Zoom technology, if you use the technology to its maximum effect, yes, by all means, because by the use of videos, online platforms, it can be facilitated. But authenticity also means students having the flexibility of talking to each other without the use of technology, using their gestures, their facial expressions, and having interaction with their colleagues, with their teacher at ease. So I do not think that that kind of authenticity can be created in a technology-based classroom. That is why we thought that in second language teaching, it's best that we combine a classroom teaching platform along with a technological-based teaching session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any more question? Dr. Nirosha, have you shared this results at the faculty?
Not yet. This is only a part of an ongoing research, Dr. Tarana. Okay. So yeah. We also wanted to see the perspectives of the students. Okay. So once the entire research is complete, we will definitely share it with a wider audience.
Yeah, because I realized that we lack kind of very detailed studies like this, when it comes to online teaching. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let me check whether there are more questions now. So I think we have come to a very interesting session, to the end of a very interesting session. So I think we can close the session now. Thank you very much.
Dr. Dilip, we are going to take a photograph of all you and other participants. So can you all, those who presented the papers, can you all open your videos so that through the computer we are going to take a screenshot.
Are we visible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Because I can't see myself.
Okay, it is done. Thank you very much. And also thank you very much, Dr. Dilip Vitarana, for conducting the session very nicely. Right, okay.
I think I would also like to thank you, the host, Nayana, and the entire technical team. I think we had a good session. I mean, without any difficulty. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for very interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now tomorrow we meet again. So this is the last item.
Yeah.
So tomorrow at 9 o'clock Sri Lankan time, shall we meet again? Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.